But the biggest question, number one, what is the starting five going to look like? Last year, we know the five: Brunson, Hart, Bridges, Anunoby, Towns. Logged the most minutes in the NBA last year. Although they logged the most minutes in the playoffs last year, one of the worst net ratings of all the conference finals teams. So clearly, even though that collective got the Knicks out to the 5th overall offense in the league, and obviously a great record, the 3rd seed in the East, they did kind of taper off a bit as the season progressed. Teams adjusted. They put the wings on Towns. They put the center on Hart. And if Hart wasn't giving you great three-point shooting, it kind of bogged down the offense a little bit. Because at the end of the day, you still had great isolation scores in Towns and Brunson anyway. But it did impact the team, and it did impact them offensively. And their net rating overall started to trickle downwards. So you have that five. Obviously, last year, the Knicks would end up segueing in, or transitioning rather, into the double big lineup with Mitchell Robinson. They saw some success there. Clearly, when they made the change in the playoffs, it was a little bit too late against the Pacers. But as we saw Mitch get more and more into this rotation, we saw some improvements, especially from a net rating standpoint. So starting Mitch obviously gives you some advantages. And I'm wondering if we got some clue here from Knicks head coach Mike Brown when he met with the media on Friday in talking about, first off, what he expected from this team defensively. So let's hear from what Mike Brown had to say, and did he give us any sort of hint at which way he wants to go?
And what our foundation is on the defensive side of the ball, and we have rules. You know, we want to make sure we protect the basket first, and we want to declare ball. But while declaring the ball, you want to load and make that paint look crowded. Then you want to find the most dangerous guy, and then whoever's the last guy down the floor, you go weak side. And for us, if we can follow those rules, we know we'll have a pretty good chance of being a good defensive transition team. The one thing that I'm big on, and I talk to everybody about this just in general, I've been big on this every team I've been with, is our ability to play with next play speed at a high level. Meaning that if we turn the ball over or somebody misses a shot that we hope that person didn't take, or whatever, and the other team is breaking the other way, that we go to offense and now we go to defense like that, and we're sprinting back. And so to have that next play speed ability at a very, very high level is something that, in my opinion, again, will separate most of the really good teams from the great teams.
All right, so that was head coach Mike Brown on what he wanted to see the Knicks do on the defensive side of things. He said muddy it up in the paint. He wanted the paint to be crowded. He emphasized rim protection. Mitch. Obviously, defensively, it requires a lot of good communication. We saw that at times last year with the Knicks in that starting five without Mitch out there, especially in transition. Sometimes they would get a little bit disconnected in terms of identifying their guys and getting out the shooters in transition. And so does that hint at Mitchell Robinson starting here? You guys know where I would go. I'm definitely doing it. I'm putting Mitch in that starting lineup. I want rebounding. I want him to be the signal caller. I like him, OG, and McCall out there setting a tone. Mitchell Robinson being out there is obviously going to make Karl-Anthony Towns better at the 4 by having those two guys out there. You get better rebounding as a whole. And then offensively, grabbing those second chance opportunities and getting the Knicks another chance. Spraying it out for 3, getting your 3-ballers back active. We also talked about on the last show where Mitch's skill set in terms of his rebounding gravity, that slows down the opposing team in transition. So Mitch being out there, especially off of live rebounds, can improve the Knicks' transition defense overall. And I just think as an overall, his defensive IQ and as a signal caller, you need him out there. He has to be your anchor. And the thing is, as we go into the advantages of starting the other players, even though I want to start Mitch, obviously they have to be careful with the minutes load. It's 82 games. This is a different situation. This isn't Mitch coming in March and ramping up. That was perfect for the Knicks last year. Because by the time he hit the playoffs, he was a monster. He was ready. Yeah, a couple games he's out of breath. He was out of condition, but by and large, he had a great run for them. But at the end of the day, they still have to monitor those minutes. I told you, no back-to-back. I wouldn't play him on back-to-backs. They have to be very careful. Consult with the medical team, Casey Smith and those guys, and make sure that they're doing the best that they can to get Mitch to April and beyond, which is not going to be an easy task. We know that. So even though I'm going to start him, and depending on what the situation calls for, I'm most likely going to close with him, I'm still going to, if I'm Mike Brown, have the flexibility to run the Deuce lineups and run the Hart lineups. But I'm absolutely going with Mitch. Obviously, Deuce, some of you guys have been, putting that input out there. I've been putting that idea out there to start Deuce. Look, one thing is for sure is that we had not seen that true 5-out spacing that much with the team last year in putting Deuce in there at the 2. Clearly, there would be advantages there for Towns, opening up the driving lanes. As Deuce, you utilize Deuce's three-point shooting and his floor spacing. It's going to open things up. On top of that, there is the advantage of having Deuce on the point of attack and guarding, depending on the matchups, some of the opposing teams' dynamic point guards. Whereas Bridges had that assignment mostly last year, you put some of that on Deuce. I can see that. However, the size differential there with Brunson and Deuce out there, I'm leery of that defensively. I'm also leery that, you put Deuce out there, where are the rebounds coming from? You don't want Cap in there battling for rebounds. Mikal Bridges isn't the strongest rebounder. OG is not a strong rebounder. And then you have Cat out there. So you're literally left with one big man to get you second chance opportunities on the offensive side and to end possessions on the defensive side, where you're already weak in the middle if you don't have Mitch. I think something like a unit like that can work for the Clevelands when you have Mitchell and Garland, because you have two all-defensive players right there in the middle, in Mobley and Allen. So I'd be leery to have that. However, let's see that. Can we see that in the preseason as a way to switch up your looks? And if they go with Mitch starting and don't play him on the second night of back-to-backs, what does that backup unit look like? Do they go to the Deuce lineup? Do they go to the Hart lineup? As it relates to Hart, there are advantages to playing Hart out there as well. Mike Brown wants to play fast. He wants to play with pace. When you put Josh Hart out there, he's a capable triple-double threat, as he showed last year. A secondary or tertiary playmaker. Transition offense. Finding guys or getting to the bucket himself. Rebounding. Overall toughness and grit. So Hart is going to give you that. What you don't like, the finger injury is very tricky right now. With the splint, how does he adjust to it? What does his three-point shot look like? Are teams even going to respect it? So do you get some of the same issues with the offense that you got last year in the playoffs and some of last year in the regular season when you put Hart out there? And I also wonder, should Hart be getting that much minutes this year? Especially with the depth that they have. 82-game season. He's got a chronic knee injury. And then the finger. So while I would keep it flexible, I like the idea of bringing Hart off the bench. You have him again as your secondary, tertiary playmaker, a rebounder, your connector. You get Spring Clarkson loose, Spring Deuce loose. And you put a little bit less pressure on him as he's going up against second units and can overpower some of those guys with its physicality. And then again, as the game dictates, as the game calls for, do we need to close with Hart? Just be flexible. We'll see how it goes. But I like Hart as a connector with that second unit. So that's where I'm going. I'm starting with Mitch. What do you guys think about that in the chat? Leave me some comments and let's talk about it. That's question number 1.